Hello and welcome to another episode of the Halloween Podcast. I am your host, Lyle Perez, and today we're exploring a tragic true crime that took place on Halloween night in 1998. This is the story of the senseless death of Karl Jackson. The story begins Halloween night in the Bronx, New York City. The year was 1998, and the streets were alive with costumes, trick-or-treaters, and Halloween pranks. For 21-year-old Karl Jackson, it was supposed to be a night of fun and excitement, but it ended up in tragedy that still haunts the family and the community. Karl Jackson was a quiet young man known for being responsible and caring. He worked as a data entry clerk at Morgan Stanley and was the son of a nurse and a postal worker. Karl usually avoided going out on Halloween, not because he was too busy, but because he believed it was too dangerous. Unfortunately, his caution didn't prevent the tragedy that unfolded that night. Karl was out with his girlfriend as they picked up her 9-year-old son from a child's party. As they navigated the bustling streets of the Bronx, their car was suddenly pelted with eggs by a group of teenagers. What seemed like a harmless prank would soon turn deadly. The teenagers' eggs struck their car, and Karl, concerned for the safety of his girlfriend and her son, stepped out of the vehicle to confront the culprits. An argument began, and the tension quickly escalated. As Karl sat back down in the passenger seat, one of the teenagers, Curtis Sterling, pulled out a gun. A single shot rang out, striking Karl in the head and killing him instantly. The senseless killing of Karl Jackson shocked the community and devastated his family. His mother, Gloria Jackson, recalled how it took them 2 years to even begin talking about the incident. She expressed her disbelief and sorrow, stating, quote, "We were just devastated. We never thought that anyone from our family would be murdered, especially on a holiday, for something stupid," end quote. Unfortunately, Karl's death was not an isolated incident. Halloween eggings have left a violent legacy in New York City. Since 1984, at least 24 people have been seriously wounded or killed in stabbings, shootings, beatings, or accidents sparked by egg-throwing confrontations around Halloween. These seemingly harmless pranks often lead to deadly altercations, as anger and violence escalates quickly. The tradition of egging on Halloween has its roots in the history of Mischief Night, an informal holiday celebrated on October 30th in some parts of the United States, as well as some parts in Canada and the UK. The night before Halloween, young people would engage in various pranks and acts of vandalism. This tradition dates back to the 19th century and originally included harmless tricks like soaping windows or placing items on rooftops. Over time, however, some of these pranks escalated to cruelty, including acts like egging houses, cars, and even people. Caught up in the thrill and secrecy of wearing costumes and masks, teenagers have long used Halloween as an excuse to wreak havoc. In some tragic cases, Those who confronted egg throwers, like Karl Jackson, have been murdered. Others who have been hit with eggs have chased the culprits and ended up committing violent acts themselves. The seemingly harmless prank of tossing a simple egg has been perceived as a kind of ultimate insult. The sudden splatter and the mess can enrage even the calmest of people. The New York Police Department doesn't officially track statistics on Halloween eggings, but the toll is unmistakable. The tally of 24 victims compiled from various news sources highlights the danger of what many might consider a minor prank. It's a grim reminder that actions meant as jokes can have serious, sometimes fatal, consequences. For police officers in the 104th Precinct in Queens, eggings are serious business. They ask merchants not to sell eggs or shaving cream to minors during Halloween week, and even distribute no eggs posters to stores as part of a campaign started by the Juniper Park Civic Association. This initiative aims to prevent similar tragedies by curbing the sales of items commonly used in pranks. Karl Jackson's murder was part of a disturbing pattern of violence associated with Halloween eggings. For example, 2 days before Halloween in 1994, a man leaving a bar in Brooklyn was hit with an egg tossed by several boys. In a fit of rage, he stabbed and killed one of the boys. It gets even worse. In 1996, a 10-year-old Brooklyn boy was shot in the neck by a stray bullet after an egg fight on Halloween. These incidents reveal a troubling trend where harmless pranks escalate into deadly violence. On October 29, 2005, another tragic incident occurred in the Bronx. Joseph Padro, who was 31 and the brother of a police detective, was shot and killed after he chased a group of teenagers who pelted his minivan with eggs. One of the boys that was accused of throwing the egg at his minivan was named Jeffrey Ivey, and he was 15. Ivey was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 5 years to life in prison, all for just throwing some eggs. The act of egging as a prank has also found its way into popular culture. In the classic film Rebel Without a Cause in 1955, starring James Dean, there's a scene where teenagers throw eggs at a house as part of a prank, highlighting the rebellious and often reckless nature of youth. In one of my favorite shows, The Simpsons, Bart Simpson is often depicted engaging in prank-like behavior and activities, even including egging houses. The show's Halloween specials, known as Treehouse of Horror, have depicted various forms of mischief and mayhem that can sometimes go too far, serving as a take on real-life incidences. In Family Guy, another popular animated series, there are multiple occasions where characters engage in or they react to pranks like eggings. The aftermath of Karl Jackson's death left a lasting impact on his family and community. Every Halloween, they gather at Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx, where they write messages on painted stones and leave them on his grave. Karl's sister, Carlin Jackson, was pregnant at the time of the shooting. Her son, Karl's nephew, is now 11 years old and never knew his uncle. Karl's grandmother, Sally Bagley, still keeps a pair of his shoes at the top of the stairway, an emotional reminder of the life that was tragically cut short. The teenager prosecuted for the killing of Karl Jackson, Curtis Sterling, was 17 years old at the time of the crime. He was sentenced to 20 years to life in prison and is currently serving his sentence at a state prison in Ulster County. His inmate number is 99A4542. Every October, Curtis Sterling receives a Halloween card in the mail from Karl's mother. The card reads, "I'm glad you're still there." A chilling reminder of the life lost and the consequences of that fateful night. The tragic death of Karl Jackson is a stark reminder of how quickly fun can turn into horror. Halloween is a time of joy, creativity, and community, but it also comes with the responsibility to stay safe and respectful to others. Karl's family continues to honor his memory, and his story serves as a moving lesson about the dangers of violence and the importance of resolving conflicts peacefully. It's a sobering reminder of how a split-second decision can have life-altering consequences, not just for those directly involved, but for the entire families and communities. As we reflect on this heartbreaking story, let's remember to approach Halloween with a spirit of kindness and caution. It's a night meant for fun, celebration, but we must also be mindful of our actions and their potential consequences. Although I don't have a Halloween egging story myself, I do have a story of something that happened to me when I was in high school. Well, I have two egg stories that happened to me during high school. Now that I think about it, I think one of them happened in middle school. So, I used to have a friend, his name was Fernie. His name was Fernando, but we called him Fernie. I don't think he's listening, but if you are Fernie, what's going on, man? So me and Fernie, we used to skateboard all the time, and there was a park that was down the street from my grandma's house, and we would skateboard there at night all the time. One night, I remember we were just skateboarding around the basketball courts, and this dude comes out of nowhere, comes out of the streets, comes up to us, starts yelling at us about throwing eggs, and I'm sitting there going, I don't know what this guy is talking about, but he was like furious, and he kept telling us to stop throwing eggs, that they hit his car, and I'm like, dude, we're not throwing eggs, we're just sitting here riding our skateboards in the park. And then as he left, he was furious. These dudes come out from the back of the park, and they were like laughing, and they were having a crazy time. And I'm sitting there going, man, this dude could have killed us all because of something those other kids were doing. Yeah, the dangers of egging. So if you want to partake in egging, please don't. Please just don't do it. My second story about eggs, I was already in high school and I was driving. At the time of the skateboarding story with Fernie, I wasn't driving. That's why I was skateboarding everywhere. So I was in my car, sitting at a stoplight, and out of nowhere, this other car comes burling through the side, and they're rushing through, and I'm just sitting there. I look over, and I see the guy who's driving, and it's somebody from school. I think I was a junior. Yeah, this happened when I was a junior, because I was driving junior year. So I was a junior, and the guy was somebody that I've seen at school before who was a senior, and he was like a weird, like, I don't know how to describe it. He was just some weird kid. And he looks at me, and he like throws an egg at my car. It hits my windshield, and I'm sitting there going, dude. And I don't know if the guy recognized me or not, but I saw him at school a few other times, and I wanted to beat the crap out of him. But I never did. I never got into any altercations about somebody throwing an egg at me. I'm pretty easygoing. I was very easygoing in high school. I'm still very easygoing today. So as long as it's directed towards me and not my kids, my family, anything like that, I will not retaliate at all. I'll probably laugh along with you. That's how we need to be taking a lot of these pranks. Take it with kind-heartedness versus anger. Because if you take it to anger, stuff quickly escalates, and we could all end up like Karl Jackson or any of the other people that I mentioned in this episode. So, reminder, guys, don't egg, don't play pranks if you're not ready to suffer the consequences. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Halloween podcast. But before we go, we have a little bit of housekeeping to do. For the past couple of weeks, we have been doing a giveaway for a framed The Halloween podcast print. We had a few people enter the contest, and we have a winner. Christina M., you are the winner for the Halloween podcast print, so congratulations to you. But she kind of already knew that because I did a Facebook Live yesterday where we drew the name. If you're not part of our Facebook community, you have to get in on it. We have a lot of Halloween fun over there. Just go to facebook.com/The Halloween Podcast, like our page, and that's it. I post almost daily about upcoming shows, and I even give out sneak peeks. I had a lot of fun doing the live. As a few listeners showed up, we talked, and we just hang out for a bit. It was a great time. I might be doing more of those, so you don't want to miss out. Go like our page right now so you can stay up to date on all of the Halloween podcast news. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, which was our first dive into some true crime. If you liked episodes like this or want to suggest something for a future show, let me know by sending me an email to thehalloweenpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you guys next week. Have a good night.